Light is a class that can be incredibly useful or useless depending on how it's played. Fact of the matter is, your loadout has to be based on your environment and team. So picking a weapon that prevents flexibility will make the loadout that you choose revolve around your weapon rather than your team composition. Which we can all agree, being able to perform as a team instead of individually is very beneficial when it comes to winning. In today's video, we're going to go over the best weapons for Light when solo queuing. And after spending a good amount of time with every weapon in the class, I gotta say, the choices I wound up with definitely surprised me. But before we get into it, I'll be giving away 5 $10 multi-buck codes to 5 lucky contestants. All you need to do is like this video, which also has a huge impact on the visibility of this channel, so that's greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what your favorite weapon is for solo queuing regardless of the class, and why it is reliable for you. Anyhow, without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, if you haven't seen my best heavy solo queue weapon guide, I state that when looking for these weapons, they are going to be based off of factors such as forgiveness, consistency, and versatility. With that being said though, the light class is a different story when compared to medium and heavy, because all of the light specializations provide a consistent way to either close gaps or gain distance on demand. So the rule of versatility is not as strict, because regardless of the specialization, a lack of range can be compensated for quite easily. So the two factors we really have to press on are forgiveness and consistency. With that in mind, let's start with the safe weapons. The reason why they are safe is because they are relatively easy to use, are effective at close and far ranges, and have very little variation when it comes to their recoil pattern, allowing the guns to be controlled relatively easily. The first has stood strong since the beta, that is the XP54, doing 16 damage per bullet to the body and 24 damage per bullet to the head, firing at 860 RPM, a magazine size of 34, and total damage per mag at 544. It has an empty reload time at 2.50 seconds, tactical reload time of 2.25 seconds, minimum drop-off range at 22.5 meters, and maximum drop-off range at 32.5 meters. Even with all the adjustments this weapon has been through, from the nerf to its range all the way to the increase in RPM, the XP is still very easy to control with an almost vertical recoil pattern, capable of annihilating opponents from 0 to 30 meters, and can also do a good amount of damage around the 40-meter mark. Also, with the addition of sights, this weapon can be easily customized to the player's preference. The huge benefit for me personally is the ability to easily track horizontally or vertically when compared to the ARN. This is because the recoil for the XP54 is not as harsh. Speaking of the ARN 220, this new addition to Light's arsenal is another safe weapon, doing 17 damage per bullet to the body and 25.5 damage to the head, has a rate of fire at 725 RPM, magazine size at 30, but when combined with the quick mag, it increases to 60. The damage per magazine is 510, and for both is 1020. The empty reload time after finishing the first mag is 0.80 seconds, then 2.80 seconds when both are completely empty. And the tactical reload is 2.45 seconds. It has a minimum drop-off range at 37.5 meters and maximum drop-off range at 45 meters. The ARN has incredible versatility, having more range than the XP54, and is still quite easy to control just as long as the player gets used to the recoil harshness, which makes it somewhat difficult to fire at close range. But it should be easy to overcome with a little bit of practice, or even after using my warm-up routine that I have for this weapon, which is linked in the description or the upper right hand corner if you're watching this from YouTube. And taking into consideration if the player cannot eliminate an opponent within one mag, quickly swapping to the second mag in under a second adds a layer of forgiveness to clean up whatever's left. Although the recoil is harsh for this weapon, the pattern is damn near vertical, allowing the player to consistently land shots from mid to far range. With that being said, the ARN 220 has a wide selection of sights, allowing the player to customize it to their preferences. The ARN 220 and XP54 are both my go-to weapons when I feel either my movement or aim is off on a particular day, allowing me to either sit back at a safe distance and beam my opponents to oblivion, or allow me to get up close and personal without fear of running out of bullets if I'm missing more shots than usual. Next up, we have the 93R, the weapon that had a rough start when it first released, but after all the adjustments it has received, this weapon has climbed all the way through the ranks, becoming the Light's very own pocket FAMAS, doing 26 damage per bullet to the body and 39 damage to the head. This weapon fires 3 shots per burst, fires at 210 RPM, a magazine size of 24, and total damage per mag at 624. It has an empty reload time of 1.75 seconds and tactical reload time of 1.45 seconds. It has a minimum drop-off range of 32 meters and maximum drop-off range of 42 meters. The 93R is capable of deleting opponents at close range with fantastic hipfire, and at far ranges because of the burst being extremely easy to control. It also has the second shortest tactical and empty reload time in Light's arsenal, when it comes to bullet-based weapons of course, allowing you to get back into the fight as soon as possible. The 93R easily makes its way into the category of safe weapons because a player can simply pick this up and be very effective with it, not having to worry about adjusting to any type of recoil harshness or pattern. It is as plug and play as it gets. It also has the ability to attach a red dot sight, giving the player more variety to suit their preference. I personally like the red dot because it allows me to land shots at far ranges consistently, and if the player learns how to pace their shots, they can also consistently hit that optimal TTK. So these are all the best safe weapons for Light. However, I want to clarify that safe does not necessarily mean weak, because these weapons are still very lethal, with competitive TTKs and can be quite frequently seen in high elo lobbies, especially the ARN. Now, even though I mentioned that these weapons need to excel in all 3 factors, there is another that fills those prerequisites, but it does require practice and a better understanding of the weapon's projectile behavior. This weapon, of course, is the bow. When firing the bow uncharged, it does 60 damage to the body and 90 damage to the head, has a fire rate of 78 RPM, and takes 160 milliseconds to fire the first shot uncharged. When charged, it does 124 damage to the body and 186 damage to the head, with a 48 RPM, taking 640 milliseconds to charge one shot. While charging the bow, the damage steadily increases continuously from 60 to when it is completely charged at 124 damage. The bow shoots infinitely, meaning that it does not have a mag size or reload time, also does not have any type of fall off damage. The only thing the player needs to take into account is the arrow's velocity and arc when engaging targets at far ranges. Now, this weapon is not one I use quite frequently, but I can certainly acknowledge its versatility. What makes this weapon and the throwing knives more difficult to use when compared to other light weapons is getting used to leading your shots, finding a good tempo, taking advantage of quick melee combos when in close range, and again, accurately predicting the projectile arc and velocity when firing at far distances. However, when learned, the bow can easily take down 1 to 2 opponents, and depending on the player's skill level, if they can land the majority of their shots, not having to reload can compensate for the RPM and make the bow very forgiving. Now, the next group of weapons I'm going to bring up are not as versatile, but are automatically compensated for with any one of Light's specializations. This is because each specialization makes it incredibly easy for the class to either close the gap or put distance between you and the opponent, making weapons that only excelled up to medium range just as effective as the ones that can perform at all ranges. So the first of these weapons is the M11, doing 16 damage per bullet to the body and 24 damage to the head, has a fire rate of 1000 RPM, magazine size of 40, and 640 damage per mag, with an empty reload time of 1.85 seconds and tactical reload time of 1.55 seconds. Its minimum damage drop-off range is 10 meters and maximum is 17.5 meters. The M11's hipfire is exceptional, letting the player strafe around the opponent very fast while dealing massive damage, and can quite literally disintegrate anything within 10 meters because of its lethal combination of RPM and damage per bullet. On top of that, the TTK for this weapon is incredibly low, but besides being able to one-clip opponents, the player is also able to do huge chunks of poke damage very quickly to cripple the opposing team, making them for an easy cleanup. The addition of new sights allows the M11 to have more clarity to control the recoil, which could potentially eliminate a light at around 20 meters or so. The learning curve for this weapon is quite easy. The amount of bullets in the mag makes it forgiving, along with its exceptional hip fire and high damage output, making the M11 a very consistent choice. The next weapon is one of my personal favorites, that is the V9S. Doing 40 damage per bullet to the body and 60 damage to the head, has an RPM of 360, magazine size of 20, does a whopping 800 damage per mag. Has an empty reload time at 1.50 seconds and tactical reload time of 1.25 seconds. Has a drop-off minimum range of 10 meters and maximum range of 15 meters. Although it has received quite a bit of adjustments throughout the seasons, I still feel that this weapon is being slept on. The V9S is an alternative to the M11. However, where they differ is that the M11 excels in headshot TTKs, and the V9S excels in better body damage TTKs. Even if the differences are very slight between the two, for me personally, I feel like the V9S is a safer option when compared to the M11. This is because hitting those crits is quite easy if the player learns how to control their pace. This weapon can shred anything within 10 meters and can do a great amount of damage up to 30 meters. This is because of the control it provides while pacing. And if it is learned, this weapon becomes incredibly consistent, and the amount of bullets it provides makes it just as forgiving as the M11, with the total damage per mag able to eliminate a full health heavy 2 times over. To add to that, the V9S has the shortest reload time of all the bullet-based weapons for light, allowing the player to potentially eliminate 2 opponents back to back with ease. Now you're probably wondering why I didn't mention the double barrel shotgun, aka the SH1900, or the M26 Matter. Both are very exceptional, if not one of the best options for burst damage at close ranges. However, they do require a team to capitalize on the damage they provide, and perform slightly better on some maps versus others. This is because in order to eliminate the opponent, the player needs to get within 10 meters or 5 meters specifically for the double barrel to guarantee a good amount of damage or even an elimination. So if you were able to pick off an opponent, you still need your teammates there to follow up and clean up the rest of the opposing team, because if you don't, you will be quickly eliminated by a competent opponent. And worse yet, now your statue is stuck behind enemy lines, making you a liability to the team. On top of that, these weapons have a high chance of requiring at least 1 charge to get into optimal ranges, and if the player is using dash, this leaves you with only 2 charges for evasive maneuvers or escape. What this essentially all means is that you're going to have to pick your loadout based on your weapon rather than your team, because all of the weapons I mentioned before can do a decent amount of damage at around 20 meters. Although 20 meters is kind of pushing it in terms of having good range, it is just enough for a player to put out damage at a distance and provide an opportunity to escape or reposition, without having to unnecessarily get close to the opponent. Now again, both these weapons at their effective ranges are very powerful. I cannot stress this enough, especially with the SH1900 being able to 1-shot a light and 2-shot both medium and heavy, hence why they are the best reserve weapons in my opinion. So when I'm in a tournament and I am confident that my team is able to provide openings for me to get into those effective ranges without necessarily having to use a specific loadout, or if they consistently play close to me and are able to clean up after an elimination, then I will equip these weapons. Now, it is possible to solo queue successfully with them. However, they are not the best starting options, because again, the SH1900 and Matter are very reliant on either team play, map specialization, or gadgets. This indirectly caters to a more selfish playstyle, making the player not very flexible. And flexibility is key to success when it comes to being a solo, thus revolving your loadout around your team rather than the weapon. That pretty much wraps up this video. If you're looking for more detailed guides on how to use the weapons I mentioned above, you can check out my Weapon Masterclass playlist, which I'll have linked in the description or on the upper right hand corner of this screen, if you're watching this on YouTube of course. Also, don't forget to enter the giveaway, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what your favorite solo queue weapon is. Peace and love guys, and I'll see you in the arena.